E aí, pessoal, beleza? Bom dia, bora lá acompanhar aqui a Western States.
Dr. Robert Lind would always fire off the family's 20 gauge and send all of the runners off. Paul is continuing that tradition. He and his family. Would you mind giving the Lind family a nice round of applause? Now, you're all equal out here, and I know that, but in particular, I really like very quickly to point out a certain individual who's with us this morning. All of you are going to make history of one sort or another. In particular, we have a runner by the name of Adam Popp who's with us this morning. Adam is an adaptive athlete. Many of you know Adam's story. I just want to point out that Adam's destiny today is to make history, to become the first above-knee amputee to ever finish our race. Would you mind giving Adam some love, please? Now, a long time ago, I had a chance to run this race. I had a chance to spend the early miles of the race with a guy by the name of Tim Tweetmeyer, who was on his way to finishing the race for the 25th time. And as we were going up to the top of the escarpment, it was the only time in the history of this race that I was ever close to Tim. And he pointed out, he said, "Hey, look over there." And I was like, "What's over there?" And he said, "There is Auburn." And I had to look really closely. And he said, "You know, that is what the journey is all about today. And that is sort of our destiny to go there." All of you are destined to go on that same journey today. And as you're going to go out there on that journey today, there'll be times when that Auburn is going to look way, way far away. But I know that all of you have it within you to not only complete that journey, to bring all of us into your journey as well. Remember that all of us, we care about you. We know that you've struggled, you've trained, you've wondered, and now this is the moment. This is your moment to find that spot out there that seems so far away that you've been dreaming about for these many months and maybe even years, and you're going to realize that today. And as you do that, if you can run with love in your hearts and with respect for all of the people around you and the knowledge that the more people you bring in today, the more fulfilling and joyful it is going to be as you reach that finish line in Auburn, California. We cannot thank you so much for being here today and sharing all of your journeys and all of your destinations and all of your hopes and dreams with all of us today. It's going to be a fantastic day. We are so pumped to have all of you with us today. Reach out, love the people who are close by you, encourage them, tell them to join your journey as well. And now that I'm out of words, we will count down together and we will get this 50-second running going. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a great journey today, everybody. We will see you all in Auburn. Here in the great state of California, the runners are making their way up the service road at Palisades Tahoe, the first and longest climb of today's course. Corinne, the 2025 Western States has started.
Just chills immediately. And I love that our countdown clock, which you see in the upper right hand of your screen, immediately flipped over to counting up the time. Will we see that 14-hour time today? Will we see that sub 15:30 time today? We had the women finish in the daylight last year, and we're going to be absolutely jacked up for the next 20 hours, basically.
So many fun stories to follow here today with 20,000 people currently watching us on YouTube. A big warm welcome to everybody, no matter where you're watching from. Please do join us in the chat. Let us know who you're cheering for, where you're watching from, and whether or not you are excited about the 2025 Western States as we look back down at Palisades Tahoe from one of our cameras up up on the race course. We will have a number of cameras throughout this 100-mile course. A lot of people on bicycles, running with gimbals, have steady cams. So we're going to do everything we can to capture as much as we can of the action here today. And of course, as we said at the top of the broadcast, we do not sleep. We do not stop until that 30-hour cutoff. So you're going to want to stay locked in.
Yeah, stay locked in while we all slowly crack here in studio later today. It definitely will happen.
But we're barely getting warmed up now, just like the runners are climbing up the service road at Palisades Tahoe, a place that, of course, is famous for skiing and that I think Western States has only made more famous. I think we could call it the unofficial North American capital of trail running there in Palisades Tahoe. Of course, Auburn, California, where you and I are sitting now, is affectionately known as the endurance capital of the world also. So these are hallowed grounds, so to speak, as we look at a train of runners ascending the hill. As soon as we can get cameras on some of our leaders, we'll start pointing out who some of the favorites are here today. Corinne and I have been talking about it here for the last 45 minutes or so. But even without our returning champions, Katie Scheid on the women's side and Jim Walmsley on the men's side, this is one of the deepest and most competitive fields we've ever seen at Western States. And it seems like we say that every single year.
Yeah, and we'll get our first official splits when we hit about the 4-mile mark at the top of the escarpment, and then we will send those runners off into the wilderness before we get splits at Lion Ridge at 10.3 miles in and Red Star Ridge at 15.8. But look at that pack. You can actually see David Roach's green shorts and bucket hat at the front of that. We'll call it the little peloton.
Yeah, the little peloton. We are expecting pack racing here today. Corinne, you and I have been talking about it all day. Though David Roach and Rod Farvard have both been on record saying that they want to have an impact on the race. They've both said it in different ways, but David making the statement that he thinks the biggest margin for improvement here as it relates to historically fast Western States times is through the early miles, through the high country, as we call it, which would only indicate that David probably plans to go out hard. Rod Farvard has said he's thinking about this in black and white terms. Rod Farvard, the second fastest male to ever run the Western States 100 in the historical battle with Jim Walmsley last year. Rod Farvard ran 14:24. He said he wants to have an impact on the field. I would expect both to be racing aggressively off the front, which, Corinne, does have downstream implications to how everybody else experiences the day and whether they can stick to their race strategies.
Yeah, no, I think actually this front pack is quite interesting in that regard. Obviously, we're all about, a kilometer into a 100.2 mile day. But I will say that I do think that these race dynamics are already looking a bit different than what we've historically seen in the past. That is Kilian Jornet in the white tank top on the far left hand of your screen, that normal tank top and white hat. I believe that will be Kilian in the far left-hand side of that men's lead pack.
Kilian Jornet, of course, everybody calls him the GOAT. I think the GOAT emojis are already active in the chat, but he has done everything in the sport from short distance to long distance. 37 years old, a father of 3, a Catalan runner, but lives in Norway. Kilian Jornet back here at the Western States 100 after winning way back in 2011, still at the top of his game. Of course, back then he was only 23 years old, and here he is, a different man, a father now, but still the best athlete in the world.
Say that, right? We say that, but the guy is fast. I've seen his workouts. Yeah. We know how well he can run on flatter terrain. And he's dabbled in things, right? He's dabbled in track 100-mile attempts. Like, the guy knows how to move efficiently through time and space. While this is, yes, different than UTMB, different than his Alps project, it's not that different from the fact that he's putting in the hours and miles just like everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. He is, I think, more known for his mountain running prowess over the years. This is the type of course that suits people with a little bit more foot speed, oftentimes people who come from that road and track background. Kilian, of course, is more of a mountaineer and a ski mountaineer. So this is not necessarily unfamiliar terrain, but not necessarily the type of course that he personally excels at. And he would be the first person to admit that. Of course, he is coming in as one of, if not the main favorite in today's race, but that does not mean that it is guaranteed, which is sort of foreign territory for somebody like Kilian, who has certainly won a lot more races than he's lost in his career. Probably one of the only people you can say that about in the sport.
Well, what was the stat yesterday that I heard that he's been on the podium 90% of the races he run, which honestly kind of sounds low for Kilian, but it's quite high by everyone else's standards.
As we go side by side here, it looks like the men are on the left, the women are on the right. It looks like we've got packs in both races, and we're going to start to identify some of the runners here as we see them so that you can keep your eyes on them throughout the course of today's broadcast. That neon green pack, that is one Hannes Naumburger, a German athlete, part of our international cohort. In addition to Kilian Jornet, we do have some great international talent in both races. And I think on the right, that might be Fu Zhao Zhang, our second place finisher in the women's race last year. Fu Zhao from China.
Yeah, I'm also trying to decide if that's obviously a quiver on that person's back. We've got a couple quivers on our screen right now, but I'm assuming they're empty because tracking devices and poles are not allowed.
Yeah, very, very strange.
So, I mean, there are some packs where the quivers are built in effectively, and so removing them is not ideal. But we're seeing, a quiver on both sides of our screen right now.
Não sei se são dois pilotões aí, estão filmando a mulher.
So again, 5:06 a.m. The sun is rising on the Lake Tahoe Basin. The runners are going to be climbing for the next 40 minutes or so up over the top of the escarpment, where there are likely going to be hundreds or thousands of fans. For the first time ever, Palisades Tahoe opened up the tram so that people could get a ride to sort of the halfway point up the mountain. So there's going to be a lot of fans up there to greet both our professional athletes, but then also our back of the pack athletes will take, I think in some cases an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to go up over the top of the high point of today's course before you crest over the Sierra and start making your way downhill all the way to the track here in Auburn. A nice side-by-side here, looking at the front of the men's races on the left, the women's race on the right. And as soon as we get a little bit more light, we'll be able to identify a few more of these athletes.
Yeah, I saw a North Face logo, I think, there on the white shirt, which would put Seth Ruling in that group. Seth is a very comfortable climber. Would not be surprised to see Seth also right at the front of that men's lead pack.
Yeah, and Seth is also known for racing in an aggressive style. He bleached his hair this week. They say it's the year of the boy, the Boulder boy, Seth Ruling, carrying one of the hottest hands into today's race. He won and set the course record of the Black Canyon 100K back in February, probably North America's most competitive 100K. And then he won the Canyons 50K also on these trails here in Auburn, California in April. So Seth Ruling, certainly one of our favorites here today.
I think that might be Dan Green even on the back of that pack in that Solomon kicks. I think he is the only Solomon guy in the race.
Green right there.
Dan Green, your Cocodona 250 champ, also in this men's lead pack heading up the mountain.
Yeah, and immediately to his left in that Hoka pack, that's Vincent Bouillard, the reigning UTMB champ, one of the biggest and greatest stories of the 2024 season. Vincent Bouillard, an employee of Hoka, came out of nowhere to shock the world, winning UTMB, and now he's got his chance to run Western States here today.
Oh, you did it. The year of the boy is blowing up the chat.
Uh-oh. My fault. Year of the boy. So we go back to our steady cam here on the left-hand side. That in the middle of your screen is Palisades Tahoe, the beautiful valley. If you've never been here, you have to come visit it. A little bit out of view right now, but we'll see at the top of the escarpment is Lake Tahoe, the famous and largest alpine lake in North America. I think it is. It's very, very special and beautiful place that the runners are enjoying on a perfect, crystal clear late June morning in the middle of summer. All of these runners in peak fitness here today, and they are going to celebrate all the hard work they put in to get here. But that means they're also going to be competing their faces off for the next 14 plus hours in the men's race, 15 plus hours in the women's race. Course records are on notice here today. We will be providing live perspective as to how fast they're relative to those course records as soon as we can get splits. As Corinne said, the first one we're going to get is at the top of the mountain. And we'll monitor that again throughout the day. It's hard to ID this leader in the women's pack here, wearing that quiver, the white vest on the right-hand side.
Someone who I do know in the field who could be racing incredibly aggressively, again, is Martina, the Polish athlete coming into the race, has a 33-minute 10K. Just did that recently. Actually has been absolutely throwing down in training. She went out and did the high camp challenge route just like earlier this week and put up the second fastest time ever on it, only behind Bailey Kowalczyk.
Wow. Amazing. So, I mean, it speaks to something I've been sort of thinking through the last 48 hours or so as I've been doing my prognostication. And I kind of feel like something unpredictable is going to happen today. Somebody like Martina, who got in through CCC last year, and I think that was really her first big international breakthrough. Those types of athletes, you know, it's not been totally unfamiliar for us to see them also have a secondary, bigger breakthrough at a race like Western States. So Martina Milnarczyk, a Polish athlete, will be somebody that we want to keep our eyes on throughout today's race. But this is the world's biggest stage. This is an opportunity for these athletes to really make a name for themselves, to make a mark on the sport, to be part of history. And that is incredibly compelling for any professional athlete. And it's going to be certainly something that's going to happen today.
Yeah, and just for reference, as we make our way up the mountain, you can see that sunrise now kicking up across the valley. Is that the average kind of fast times up to the escarpment, again, technically about 3.5, 4-ish miles into the race, is just around 39 or 40 minutes. So that is what we anticipate to see with the men coming up and over the escarpment today as well. I did see a John G shirt in that men's lead pack. So we've got two John G guys, though, with both Ryan Montgomery back in the field this year, and also Heraldus as well. Suberdis is also a John G athlete in the field today.
Great. A lot of white in the pack here today.
Not helping us out.
Western States is known for the heat, so I think the boys all, you know, coordinated their wardrobes to stay a little bit cooler. On the far right at the front, that is Adam Peterman, 2022 champion Hoka athlete, went through a period of injury, got back in through CCC, then broke the course record at Gorge Waterfalls. Peterman coming back in prepared.
And that Hyperlight kit, that's going to be Hans Troyer. People were wondering where Hans Troyer was in that lead pack. So he'll be in an ultra kit, but you saw that kind of red writing across his back. And that is going to be Hans Troyer.
I think on the right, that looks like...
That's a Terex pack.
Yeah, it looks like Abby Hall to me. In the women's race, a very experienced athlete, kind of like Adam Peterman, was sort of at the peak of her career, then went through a long stretch of difficult injury, battled her way back up to be at the top of the sport. So Abby Hall will be a name we want to watch here today. Go ahead.
I was going to say, put in one of the biggest training blocks I've ever seen in the women's field that's been publicly available. I do think that Courtney DeWalter is probably a pretty high mileage gal herself, but Abby put in a couple 130-mile weeks, and you'll be able to pick out Abby Hall all day today because those little elbows of hers bow out to the side a little bit. We call her the duck. And so the duck in her arms, you'll see those elbows come right out to the side, but she's a lanky person, and she looks to be near at the front of this women's race right now as well.
All right, Abby Hall in the men's race there with the black Terex pack, the first runner you see. That is Danny Jones from New Zealand, 4th place last year, ran one of the fastest times ever. I think with 14:32 last year was only good enough for 4th place. Dan Jones, certainly one of the favorites.
One of the few kits that is not going to be white today appears to be that Brooks kit. You're going to see that in the bright blue and bright green. So we do anticipate that we've got both Chris Meyer and String Bean, Joe McConaughey, making their way up into that men's lead pack.
Look at this angle of the wood chips here as they ascend the service road here at Palisades Tahoe. A big group of men bunched up in a pack. This Corinne, I mean, it's a little bit different than what we've seen in previous years, you know, like, I guess, obviously it's not unusual to see the pack sort of starting together like this, but it seems like everybody is like literally shoulder to shoulder. Typically you'll have at least one person like 5 or 10 seconds out front, but really everybody is together.
Yep, so just to point out that it's also Jeff Mocavero in that group as well. There's Jeff right there with those red arm sleeves. Ryan Montgomery's in the yellow shorts right there. So we're going to start to pick out these little details.
Hannes
going to hiking. in that group, but that's what we're going to start to pick out is this kind of combination. And this might be a little bit of separation, right? We know that David is a never hike kind of guy. Is this a place where he even like opens it up a little bit? But Seth Ruling was right there next to him with that new bleached blonde hair. That man is also a never hike kind of guy.
We talk about this every year, Corinne, but remembering back to my time here at Western States, which is a long time ago, we should say, but even then at this point in the race, you can feel that energy in the pack. All these guys are sort of sizing each other up. Everybody's sort of using their peripheral vision to sort of feel out who's feeling strong, who's looking strong, who's around me right now. When one person breaks into a hike, it sort of has a cascading effect. Other people break into hike, and then people start tiptoeing back into a running cadence, and then everybody starts tiptoeing back into a running cadence. So again, they used to say the race starts at Forest Hill, but certainly the race is already underway here, and these men are already sizing each other up and trying to understand who are going to be the main contenders out on the course here today.
Billy Yang just came out of the studio trailer absolutely losing his mind, and I feel that too. Okay, not only do we have this amazing...
Is that Riley Brady in front of Abby Hall
honestly, that would be a great
in front of, there's string beans. So that's our lead two women. I think that's Riley Brady in the white long sleeve, followed by Abby Hall at the front of the women's race. Riley Brady coming in like Seth Ruling, one of the hottest hands in the sport. A win at Javelina, a win in a huge course record at Black Canyon, and then another win in big course record at the Quad Rock 50 miler. Riley Brady here to play today. A lot of people's pick to win.
Yep. I think Riley Brady has been in almost every single top 3 I have heard of, and I don't fault anyone for saying that that's where they're going to end up. So again, I think Riley Brady was also one of the people that we said, you know what? Who am I going to pick to be going over the escarpment first? There's Heather Jackson coming by as well. Marianne Hogan coming by. That might be, is that Erin Clark? Yep. No, Shea Aquilano. Yep. We got 3 Nike women in the race again. So you're going to have Riley Brady leading the charge. You've got Shea Aquilano and Erin Clark making up those 3 Nike athletes. So we're slowly picking out everyone's kits.
All right, so this is interesting, Corinne. The whole men's race is bunched up at the front, and then we already have things stringing out in the women's race with Riley Brady and Abby Hall taking the initiative. Of course, the rest of the women contenders are not far in arrears, but it's a little bit different dynamic already between the two packs.
And there's Dan Jones bridging back up to this group. I don't know if he just got kicked out of it for a second, but Dan Jones right there on that pack as well. But yeah, and to be fair, there's Emily Hoggood, all smile. I love to see
We talked to Emily yesterday about just sort of like the attitude component. I feel like she's always had that dialed, and it's probably one of the contributing factors to her remarkable consistencies. We see Caitlin Fielder now marching up the hill, a great Kiwi New Zealand athlete making her 100-mile debut. Caitlin Fielder is going to be a big factor here today too, I suspect.
And I just saw pink hats that might have been Keely Henninger coming through as well.
Tara Dower.
And maybe How Ha on their shoulder, going to be in a callus kit there. Fiona Pascal, I think.
Fiona Pascal. Have we mentioned Fiona yet today?
No. Well, maybe only in passing as her sister, Beth Pascal, a previous champion here at Western States, the younger of the Pascal sisters, making her not 100-mile debut, but Western States debut after absolutely smashing Chianti back in March.
As we established, one of the storylines coming into today was the All in the Family storyline, both Adam Peterman and Erin Clark, the engaged to be married couple in the field, and then Fiona Pascal, who is following up the amazing history of her sister here at Western States 100. Maybe vying to become the first siblings to both win the Western States 100. Fiona Pascal racing into the race at the Chianti 120K earlier in the spring. Took a couple weeks to decide whether she wanted to make her 100-mile debut. And thanks to her sister, Beth, I think, she convinced her to come all the way over here to California to take on the Western States. So, Fiona, we are going to be following you throughout today. Again, the men's lead pack on the left, the women's lead pack on the right. We are just getting started 20 minutes into the race.
Yeah, being led again on the women's side by Riley Brady, the new Nike athlete. Nike picking up both Riley Brady and Shea Aquilano this year, followed in close step by Abby Hall. Very exciting to see the two of them head up over towards the top of the escarpment. Again, left side, it looks like maybe Jeff Mogavera has moved up onto David's shoulder there as well. And then Seth Ruling sticking it right there.
Yep.
Also, huge shout out to our camera team. We've got this angles coming from the bike, but that I believe is that Christina Randrup maybe also running the Terra deck right now. Like, talk about absolute crushers.
Yeah.
Os
Christina
câmeras
has
aí,
been
gente,
here
estão de bike, mas
running
tem uns
throughout the
correndo
week from
aí,
Broken
pulando.
Arrow through the Chuck Wagon Beer
Câmera
Mile,
desse
now
tipo de
running a
prova tem
Terra
trabalho,
deck
gente.
with Riley
Cara,
Brady.
vem descendo
No
voo,
easy
filmando,
feat,
acompanhar a
but
elite
thank
aí,
you
não é
to the
fácil,
whole
não.
team
Tem
who's
que ser
making this
atleta, viu? Tem que ser
broadcast
atleta, viu?
possible here
Atletas bem
in our
preparados
fifth
mesmo.
year. Riley Brady certainly putting the gas on the field here in the early miles.
And a good mention, I did see that Scarpa kit in the men's field as well. It's going to be that blue, white, and black kit. And that's going to be the young, maybe one of the underdogs in the field, someone who has not gotten a lot of attention or hype. I don't think I've heard an interview with him going into Western States. Peter Frano.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that this morning, Corinne. I'm glad you brought him up. He's finished on the podium at the World Championships a couple of years ago, second in a tight race in between Hayden Hawks and Adam Peterman at CCC. That's where he punched his golden ticket. I know he and Hayden have trained a lot together over the years. I know Hayden speaks very highly of him. And when an athlete of Hayden's caliber says, hey, look out for this kid from Slovakia, you need to look out from the kid from Slovakia. So Peter Frano will be one of the characters you're going to want to keep your eye on, who has sort of been flying under the radar.
I just caught Dan Green and Ryan Montgomery are just chit-chatting it up. I just saw them share a fist bump.
Ryan Montgomery. Tá no pilotão.
One person we haven't talked about also in that Nike ACG kit is Caleb Olsen, fifth place last year in the fastest ever Western States debut, 14:40 for only fifth place last year, a time that would have won the race almost every single year. Caleb Olsen said he's hoping to improve either in place or time, hopefully both. And I know his crew from Salt Lake City is expecting him to leave a mark here today.
Yeah, and he'll be supported out here by his wife with their 7-week-old son.
Yes.
I think her family's out here, his family's out here, so everyone's going to make it happen for them. But again, really, really excited to have Caleb and the whole team out there. That is the quiver on that. I believe that's Rod.
Farvard. Second place finisher here last year, the second fastest man ever in the 52-year history of Western States is there on the left-hand side of your screen. You're going to want to keep your eye on him.
And I love this. We've got this like slow little bridge from Abbey Hall. Not to say that they're moving slow, because I would be getting dropped and gassed out there. But Abbey Hall moving right up behind Riley Brady, keeping it really, really controlled. Again, these two runners have put in such amazing training blocks, like the rest of the field, but just really excited to see them have days out there.
Yeah. Both have histories here at Western States, though both have not had the day that they're capable of here. Riley Brady 14th a couple of years ago, way before Riley Brady had really emerged into the Riley Brady we know today.
Yeah, they had put together a bunch of strong running, but I think had yet to figure out their nutritional needs. Turns out that they are a very low sweater as far as sodium concentration goes, and so they were over salting for the most part and just giving themselves horrible GI distress. Abbey Hall has nailed the 100K distance time and time again. Amazing podium performances at races like CCC. The 100-mile race has eluded her.
I know.
In a big way. And I'm so excited to see like what happens when potential and excition come together.
Yeah, it's actually a good story because Abbey Hall, we've known to be an increcible racer for many years here, but a 2-time golden hour finisher at Leadville also. So Abbey Hall has had, those character building 100-mile experiences that certainly always lead to great success in the future when you suffer through a couple of them. Often the universe rewards you with big breakthroughs later. So Abbey Hall on the right-hand side of the right quadrant of our screen here will be one of the favorites in the women's race. And they're starting to make their way up towards high camp here. This is where they start to get up above the tree line and into sort of the alpine tundra before they make their way up over the escarpment. Again, the tram did run up to high camp this morning. So there will be thousands of spectators up on the hill to cheer the runners over the top.
Yeah, again, so small lead change on the women's side with Abbey Hall moving around Riley Brady. Now officially the first woman on her way up the escarpment. Again, the normal times for folks up to the escarpment is about 39-40 minutes or so on average. That's Killian Jornet on your screen right now in freeze frame. but looking really smooth.
Looking smooth in freeze frame. The GOAT, Kilian Jornet. It's so good to have him back next to fellow European Hannes Naumburger there. Hannes, very interesting. His course record just got broken at the Lavaredo 120K while we were sleeping last night by American Ben Demon. But Hannes Naumburger, of the European athletes, it feels like his skill set really fits well with what you need to do here at Western States. He got his golden ticket at the Canyons 100K just 8 weeks ago, so he's going to be very familiar with the course at this point. But Hannes, for his prowess, for his success, he's sort of been flying under the radar this week too.
Yeah, it's kind of, just putting the pieces together for a lot of folks out there. Someone in the chat said, a woman has never been the first over the escarpment to win the race. And I'm saying, Katie Scheid.
Last year. Katie Scheid and Courtney DeWalter the year before together.
Yeah, they've run pretty fast at the escarpment and then continued to run pretty fast for the rest of the day.
So there's a group of international athletes there. Peter Freno, we just talked about in that blue and white kit alongside Hannes Naumburger and Dan Jones.
So it looks like now you've got Jeff at the front of this men's pack, continuing to push that pace a little bit.
Jeff McGavro.
Other biggest training block I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, speaking of people who've been flying under the radar, Jeff McGavro, you and I have talked about this. People like he and Hannah Allgood, you sort of feel like are more mountain athletes, but then you see their training and then you see some of their racing performances and you're like, no, they actually have a lot of that leg speed as well. Jeff McGavro from Missoula, Montana, alongside Adam Peterman and Aaron Clark Missoula came to play here today with a really strong trifecta. I wouldn't be surprised to see all three in the top 10.
Yeah, a really, really strong men's pack. And again, that is very common. I think what we see in mass start race dynamics from the men's field and the women's field is that the women can and do oftentimes get kind of lost, particularly in the bigger races. The starting field here is much smaller, only 369 runners. So you don't get quite as lost in the overall field, but it's very common to see that men's field pack up at the front and the women kind of get strung out amongst the men that are kind of, back of the front pack, mid pack. And so that is the nature. A lot of women's racing becomes time trialing without that separated start.
Yeah. So the men right now are coming into the short flat section before they take a left-hand turn into the Alpine Tundra, and then they hit that steep final kick up over the escarpment. So the men probably about 10 minutes away from cresting over the top, and we're going to start seeing a bunch of spectators. Over on the women's side of the screen here, we do see Marianne Hogan, a previous podium finisher here, two-time podium finisher at UTMB. Marianne Hogan, great to see her back here at Western States after getting a golden ticket at Canyons 100K. And it is a beautiful early morning here at the track, Corinne. We are starting to be able to see a little bit further, and the sun is rising here in Auburn. It's a 70-degree, beautiful summer morning here before things really start heating up in earnest here today. Again, we are expecting a high of about 97 degrees, a few degrees over the historical average at Western States. Always a storyline here at the race.
Yeah, and a kind reminder for those of you following along this year, since there are many of you who maybe haven't been with us in years past as well, is that this is unlike European racing when it comes to data coverage out there. Our teams are equipped with amazing tech for this zone, but they are working in areas of zero cell service, of remote wilderness stretches, tiny towns, dirt roads to bring you this coverage. So it's going to look very different than some of that European coverage. We've got people with bikes this year on Terradex for sections where we can use them. We've got runner cams like you've never seen before at Western States that we'll be using from Forest Hill down Cal Street. So the coverage year over year continues to get better, but that is the reality of broadcasting in the wilderness in the U.S.
So true. Every year we are getting a little bit better thanks to Billy Yang and his leadership of the Western States 100 broadcast. Here we see the men on the left-hand side of our screen in that Alpine Tundra section. This is a place where we've never had this high fidelity of camera footage. So this is an example of the advancement of our coverage as we see Peter Frano there on the left-hand side of our screen, Riley Brady on the right, just a little bit behind Abby Hall. That's the front of the women's race. The men, on the other hand, are very bunched up, probably 15 or so men together here, nobody taking the initiative. Meanwhile, in the women's race, it looks like Abby Hall's putting a little gap into Riley, maybe Abby trying to string the field out early.
Yeah, and I don't even know that it's intentional.
Right.
I just think that these runners,
Fitness.
yeah, it's fitness. It's doing what you came here to do. It's running with that intentionality and running your own race. I think, again, you've got to remember that Abby Hall and Katie Scheid are really good friends. Katie spent a lot of time with them in Flagstaff with Abby and Cordis Hall last year, getting that training block in. And I think that she's leaning into that confidence that she's built watching her training and her own progression, but also, watching the training of those closest to her as well. There's some quote, and it's more about personality and I think the way you handle yourself, but you're like the combination of the 5 people closest to you type of thing. And the people that Abby is closest to are a bunch of trail ballers, I feel like. So you've got to remember as well that these athletes they know exactly what they want to get out of this.
Yeah. All right. So the runners on the left-hand side of our screen, that is the men's lead pack. They're about to come out of this grassy section back onto the service road, and then almost immediately they'll be hitting a hard right-hand turn. They'll all break into a hiking cadence, and we will see thousands of spectators there at the top of the escarpment ready to cheer them up over the high point of today's race. Here's Riley Brady. As we cut back to the escarpment, you can see Lake Tahoe there in the distance, the largest alpine lake. Oh, what a beautiful drone shot here of the lead men's race coming out of the alpine tundra back onto the service road here. And they are just a few minutes away from the high point of today's race. And there are many, many fans there to cheer them on. Only 30 minutes into their 14-plus hour journey here today. Jeff McGavro taking the initiative just in front of Vincent Bouillard and Chris Myers, a story we're going to want to follow throughout the day. Adam Peterman and David Roche also, they're locked in at the front of the men's race. Abby Hall, meanwhile, on the right.
Things are breaking up a little bit in that regard, but you also have to remember that these athletes, 30 minutes in, 33 minutes in, everyone in that group probably just took a gel. Yep. And that also takes a second for people to reset and resettle, I think, when that is happening. But everyone that we thought would be involved is currently involved in the race. Yep.
Seth Ruling there with the bleached blonde hair, bringing the swag here to Western States. Ryan Montgomery just to Seth's right. Abby Hall here making her way through the tundra section. The front of the women's race, Abby Hall has been putting in the work here over the last couple of months. I noticed a 37-mile training run on Strava with like 7,000 or 8,000 feet of climbing. These are professional athletes. This is now a very professional sport. It's one of the reasons why we keep seeing course records falling day after day, week after week. Just last week at the Broken Arrow Sky Race, we saw 4 course records fall there. Will we see course records fall here today in the 52nd year of the Western States 100? Time will tell.
Just a little bit of context on Abby Hall and what she's doing right now, too. So that for those who are unfamiliar, 2 years ago, right actually before Western States, she was out on a training run. Tom Evans, teammate, was staying at her house, out on a little training run, took a funny step, broke her leg. Effectively, she had a major, basically her femur impacted her tibia and fibula so hard that she dented them, and came out to Western States to cheer on Tom and support the best she could. Ultimately, they had to have a big surgery. Spent months and months and months recovering. I think finally by like August or September of that year, she was starting to walk again. Last year, she got back to a place where she could finish UTMB, toughed out a really hard day there, and has continued to build on that ever since. So we are seeing the return, I think, of that 2023 Abby Hall that was on a meteoric rise at that time.
I've always been so impressed with Abby too. Just the head that she has on her shoulder. She's always steady. She's always got that self-belief. She's always got the positive attitude. Even in the depths of that very serious injury, she never lost the confidence that at some point she would be back, and with hard work, patience, and dedication, here she is at the front of the women's race, taking the initiative. One of the things we've been talking about this week, Corinne, is without the likes of Courtney Dauwalter, Katie Scheid, Ruth Croft, the three greats of our generation of women's trail and ultra running, who would take that initiative? Who would fill that vacuum? It looks like Abby Hall and Riley Brady are doing that in the women's race. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, the men, half of them in a hiking cadence, half of them in a running cadence. This is what we call the escarpment here, as we see some fans and photographers documenting it. The fastest time up over the top of the high point was from Rod Farvard last year, 39 minutes, 39 seconds. So it looks like the men are right on about course record pace. No surprise here in the early miles. Looks like Jeff McGavro and David Roche there at the front of the pack, but it is a long string of men here, all still bunched up at the front.
Yeah, David going to the front there now in those green shorts, deciding to run these steps over the top. But right now you've got, 12 to 15 men that are all on or under course record pace. We love to see it.
You love to see it. They are going to go over the top under course record pace here. They are probably 2 minutes away from the top. That would put them slightly under Rod Farvard's 39-minute, 39-second mark from last year. As Abby Hall now on that service road before the steep hiking bit that we just saw the men ascend. So Abby Hall probably only 2 minutes back of the men's lead pack here. That's not something that's totally unfamiliar. Obviously, Katie Scheid and Courtney Dauwalter have done similar things. Katie Scheid, I think, was only about a minute behind the lead men last year. So women's racing right now, never been more exciting in the history of the sport, and it will be on display here today as well. The men's pack, very bunched up. The women's race already strung out. We'll start to get a sense of whether there's a chase pack in the women's race or if things are really going to be stringing out. And the men, now it becomes sort of like a bit of a cat and mouse game. Nobody is taking the lead. Nobody is taking the initiative like Abby Hall. Everybody, again, sizing each other up. I guess interpreting each other's body language to some degree, getting a sense of, hey, who's going to go and when.
Yeah, so David Roche, Jeff McGavro, Vincent, and Caleb Olson are those first four men, followed by Chris Meyer, Seth Ruling, Adam Peterman, and Killian Jornet. And then they're followed by Rod Farvard, Ryan Montgomery, and Dan Green.
Dan Green
and
in
then
the mix.
Hans Troyer right there, rounding out the rest of that men's top 15 effectively.
No surprises there. The who's who of favorites in today's race about to make their way up over the top. And we should have boots on the ground perspective of what the energy is like up there at the top of Watson's Monument. Look at all those fans.
Wow. More and more people make their way up every year. And this year, a little bit of a change with the tram open and running early to help folks get up to the escarpment.
And here's Abby Hall taking the right-hand turn. She's going to be marching up that sort of single track slope there as we see David Roche at the front of the men's race going up over the top solo with thousands of adoring fans. I shouldn't say solo. He's going up over the top in the lead just in front of the rest of the pack. But David Roche about 20 seconds underneath the course record pace now over the top of the high point on today's course. And look at the fans. Still, it looks like, right next to the trail for a little ways down on the other side of the pass here. And this is where we enter the high country, Corinne, a section of the course that I think is underrated in its difficulty. Maybe say a few words about what the men are going to confront over the next 5 or 10 miles.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that while the course is in pretty good condition, they are going to be on rockier, less, perfectly manicured terrain. It is truly, it's not that California carpet that so many people talk about. And we do know from being out on the course earlier in the week that it is actually quite wet out there as well, which is going to be, you know, the question mark of, do people keep their ankles upright? Because an ankle roll, which we've seen happen year over year from people, particularly in the high country, is a big deal. Their first official aid station of the race as well will come at 10.3 miles. So when they leave the start, they have 10.3 miles before they see aid for the first time. And again, that is going to be at the Lion Ridge aid station.
So we should get an official split from the top of the escarpment here as soon as our tracker updates. But what a beautiful shot from the drone here at the lead men. We're now dropping off the top of the high point, going through this high country section. We were talking to Tim Tollefson the other day. He said these next few miles are definitely boggy, definitely wet, a lot of uppy, downy, twisty, turny terrain, some loose rock in there. So again, you're not going to want to be racing too aggressively through this section because it is a little bit more difficult than you expect. And oftentimes runners come here to Western States without seeing these next few miles of the course. So it bears mentioning and worth, taking it easy through that section as we now come back to Hiroki Kai on the right-hand side. Crazy Karo from Japan, one of our golden ticket entrants into the race, who raced his way in at the Tarawera 100K earlier this spring. Hiroki Kai, one of our international athletes here today.
Yeah, we were joking that he's probably raced 30 times since we saw him in February at Tarawera.
Hiroki Kai, they call him Crazy Karo. He's got a very popular YouTube channel. He races with sort of a GoPro camera attached to his hat and then uploads the entirety of his races to YouTube. So you're going to want to give him a follow and you'll get to see all 100 miles of the Western States course. We are awaiting Abby Hall, who's at the front of the women's race, to also crest the top of the escarpment here. I've never seen a crowd that big. I wonder if we've got a camera on the ground up there.
So just some notes here too. So updating on the timer there, we've got, they're not in order, which is really fun technically. David Roach, Adam Peterman, Jeff McGavro, Seth Ruling, Killian Jornet, Vincent Bouillard, Hans Troyer, Hannes Nomberger, Dan Green, Peter Frano, Ryan Montgomery, Haroldus Subertis, Caleb Olson is in that mix, Chris Myers in that mix, Rod and Dan Jones also in that mix. So we've got 16 men. 16 men came over the top of the escarpment under 40 minutes.
Yep. So officially 56 seconds faster than course record pace right now in early miles.
Love it.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of hype, there's String Bean Joe McConaughey getting the crowd hyped as he makes his way up over the top. And what a great angle here to get an appreciation of the fan energy there at the top of the high point. Is on the right-hand side of the screen. Who is that, Corinne?
They're in Nikes.
So the
question is it Aaron Clark?
And there's Tara Dower, their Appalachian Trail fastest known time holder. Tara Dower unfortunately came down with a little sickness here during race week, but she's been one of the most interesting and high performing athletes in the sport for the last year plus. Tara Dower can do it all from fast and runnable to multi-day, multi-week long trails. A very, very fun athlete to follow who brings a lot of great energy and toughness into the sport. I hope she's going to be in her prime and bounce back from that illness from last weekend.
Yeah, so again, in order over the top, David Roach, Jeff McGavro, Vincent Bouillard, Caleb Olson, Adam Peterman, Seth Ruling, Killian Jornet, Chris Myers, Dan Green, Rod Farvard, Hans Troyer, Haroldus Subertis, Hannes Nomberger, Danny Jones, Peter Frano, Adrian McDonald, who we have not mentioned this morning, Hiroki Kai.
There's Abby.
Joe McConaughey.
All right, so Abby Hall now.
Wow.
Going up over the top. What is this, the Tour de France here?
What? That's the Tour de France.
Wow, great angle. Abby Hall, your women's race leader, coming up over the top of the escarpment to the adoring applause of thousands of fans as we await to see what Abby's gap is back to the women's chase pack, but doesn't seem like there's a pack at all. The women's race already stringing out. This is definitely a story, a tale of
Ryan Thrower.
There's Ryan Thrower.
Yeah, so official split for Abby at the top, 43.54 elapsed.
All right, let's check how that compares to historical splits.
Parece bem inclinado, mas não dá para ter noção ali.
Katie Scheid last year was 40.33.
Coloca aí nos comentários.
40.33. Yeah, she went very, very fast over the top of the escarpment.
So Abby Hall about 3.5 minutes behind Katie Scheid's split from the top last year. But again, Katie Scheid ran 15:45, a ridiculously fast time, the second fastest time in race history. Abby Hall probably has a time somewhere in that neighborhood in her crosshairs here today. Off to a great start here this morning.
Yeah, and I would say that was probably one of the fastest times ever over the top. Caitlin Fielder.
I think that's Heather Jackson in front of Caitlin.
Is that?
And Abby. I'm sorry, Riley.
Okay, we'll get official splits here in just a second.
Vai ter os tempos oficiais em alguns segundos, gente. Vamos ver se eles vão colocar na tela e vai ficar mais fácil.
So, images we missed, though. Abby Hall coming over the top. Eden Nilsson also in that mix, 44.23. Martina Mlinarczyk, the Polish athlete, 44.36. Esther Chilog sitting in fourth, 44.47.
3 international runners in the top 4 of the women's race so far.
And that's been a theme this week, is that we thought that both podiums, particularly on the women's side, could be very international.
Yep.
But if Eden Nilsson is up in that group sitting in second, that makes me pretty excited, because I think that she's very much been in that sit and kick mentality, and Ida is not someone that I want chasing me at the river.
It looks like Fiona Pascal here, again, the younger sister of 2021 champion Beth Pascal.
Yep. Making her way up to the top.
A irmã dela já foi campeã e agora ela é a que tá correndo aí. Acho que vai ser difícil. Vamos ver, né?
So no major surprises so far here, 47 minutes into the race. You got more updates, Corinne?
I think that was Hannah Allgood that we saw. So Abby Hall, Eden Nilsson, Martina, Esther Chilog, Hannah Allgood, Shea Aquilano, Heather Jackson, Marianne Hogan. That is your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 women over the top of the escarpment.
Great call, separated by about a minute and a half.
Minuto e meio das segundas.
The who's who of trail superstars here, as we see Emily Hawgood. Speaking of superstars, there's Caitlin Fielder and Fu Zhao Zhang. Fu Zhao there with sort of, right there in the middle of your screen. Fu Zhao from China, the second fastest woman in last year's race, the third fastest woman ever, only behind Courtney Dauwalter and Katie Scheid, taking a sip, staying hydrated here in the early miles, just in front of Kiwi Caitlin Fielder.
Sitting in a really good place right now. You've got to remember that Fu Zhao was the second fastest woman to get to the finish line last year, third fastest woman in race history. She had a really conservative start last year and 2 hours faster than she thought she would. We got her to the finish line and she said, I thought I was going to run 18.5 hours. Got it done in 16:20 and change.
We just saw Jeff Browning go over the top there. Jeff now in his 50s, one of the most significant examples of longevity and high performance in his career. Jeff Browning, great to have him back in the field today. Certainly a fan favorite from Flagstaff, Arizona. We are now behind Fiona Pascal from Great Britain. So you see the trail still wet from recent snow melt here in the beautiful Sierra Nevada of California.
Tara Dower on the right-hand side of your screen.
Yes, Tara.
Again, one of the race favorites coming in, but unfortunately got incredibly sick last week. So they, Tara, I talked to her earlier, said, I'm really excited to start the race, but, I've been getting a little bit better every day, but I think was quite ill just a week ago.
So now our latest update was Marianne Hogan was in 8th. Now we've got Keely Henninger in 9th, Hao Ha in 10th, Emily Hawgood 11th, Fu Zhao Zhang 12th, and Caitlin Fielder in 13th. So that would put Tara Dower somewhere in that sort of 15 to 18 range. Start to get official updates here momentarily, but really no surprises in the women's top 15 either. Separated separated by
camera
3 or 4
person
minutes.
just took a donut from the donut. There's a donut box. That was amazing.
Well-deserved donut. Got to stay fueled. Even the camera crew out there today have got to make sure they're getting the carbohydrates into the system to stay well fueled for the ultra marathon of race coverage that we have ahead.
Yeah, and a little tidbit. I ran into Jeff Browning earlier in the week, and I said, how fast are you planning to run? And he said, well, this is what I ran in 2021. Like, I think I could probably do that. And I was like, what's the record? And he's like, he's looking to take like 2+ hours off the 50 plus masters record. And I said, oh, are you like, I was like, is that you being like Tyler Green, come and get it? He's like, yeah, I got to lower it a lot right now. So it's really hard for Tyler or Tim to come get it when they're 50.
Well, Stephen Moore has a really solid men's 50 plus time. We can look that up here.
I think it's 18 and change.
Yeah. That was set, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And a lot of the age group records here at Western States are now incredibly strong. So we saw both the Masters course records go down last year. Ida Nilsson and Tyler Green. Ida Nilsson in the race here today. Tyler Green opted to instead run the Lavaredo 120K, which is taking place in Italy as we speak. In fact, I think Tyler finished earlier this morning, but always a fun storyline here at Western States as people are going for it. Not only overall placement, but historically fast times for age groups.
We just saw Nancy Zhang go over the top, and then that almost looked like Melissa Oswowski.
Yep. Rosanna Buschauer from Germany we saw also. And now looking ahead on the course, the next update we're going to get from the men's race and the women's race, we should say, is the Lion Ridge aid station at 10.3 miles. Usually the men go through at about 141 elapsed. That looks like the course record pace from last year. Rod Farvard's official split was 141.19. So it will be about 50 minutes until we see the men go through there. The women slightly longer than that. But that will be the next major update. I think we do have a steady can there too. So we'll hopefully get some visuals on our runners as they go through that Lion Ridge aid station.
So interestingly, looking at both the men's and women's top 20, it's about exactly 7 minutes on both sides, separates 1 through 20.
Wow. Great. Awesome.
Deep fields. That's really exciting.
The depth is deep, as they say, Corinne.
Actually, the man who says that, I think, was one of our camera runners to make it up the escarpment this morning, Mr. Brett Hornick.
Yes. All right, Brett. Thank you for your hard work. So Jeff Browning, 53 years old, went over the top in 24th position. 48-16 split for 53-year-old Jeff Browning.
That's moving.
No slouch. Gotta love to see it. An inspiration for all of us.
We got a lot of Ricky Winge friends in the chat as well, cheering him on. He came over in 22nd position. 47-49 elapsed. So I know you guys have been blowing up the chat for Ricky Wynn, and we'll be keeping our eyes out for him all day as well.
Yeah.
And now the runners kind of leave us. They depart us for a while. So our eye in the sky and our cameras at the escarpment are going to be following our the rest of our pack, the middle and back of the pack, making their way up and over the top, sending them all out into the wilderness. But that will be one of our last cameras for a second while we wait for the runners to make it to Lion Ridge.
Yep. So as Corinne said a little while ago, what makes Western States different from a lot of races that are live stream broadcasts? The course is extremely remote. In fact, it's really hard to overstate how remote it is, especially in this next section once they go up over the top of the escarpment. From basically here all the way to, Michigan Bluff Forest Hill is incredibly remote. That's mile 55 for a viewer's perspective. So really all the footage that we get is really a gift, and the live stream broadcast has advanced so much in recent years, and we're really glad to be able to bring you all the action. We do just appreciate everybody's patience as we work really hard to get cameras into these really remote sections of the course to bring you the story of today's race.
And so just we're having a small tracker issue of Riley's tracker coming in the main list there. They did come over the escarpment in 45:06 elapsed. So just to calm and quell the nerves. They came over just between Esther Chilog and Hannah Allgood.
And we did get a text from Tim Knudsen from ultralive.net that Esther Chilog, who of course was supposed to be wearing the F3 bib, the back-to-back third-place finisher here in the women's race, had to switch that out, probably an issue with the timing chip. So Esther Chilog now wearing bib 446. Hopefully that's her lucky number. We haven't talked about Hannah Allgood yet. I mean, she went over the top in 5th place. Hannah Allgood also playing a hot hand here, got 2nd place at Javelina in her 100-mile debut back in October. That's where she got her golden ticket. And she won a 50K in Marin County, the Marin Ultra Challenge, sort of a smaller local race, and then took home a big victory at the Canyons 50K, surprising herself and beating some of North America's best 50K athletes. Hannah Allgood here, her 2nd 100-miler from Colorado Springs, Colorado. She is definitely going to be one to watch. So we now start to see some of our mid-packers coming up over the top. No signs of fans leaving. They're going to stick around till that final runner comes up over. Again, part of Western States tradition is not only having people like Corinne and I talk about the professional athletes from all 4 corners of the globe who come here to push themselves to their limits, but also the people who are chasing the cutoffs, who will be heroically out there for all 30